Hey guys, we're back with another Heavy Minded podcast, and I'm here with Justin. He's in Brazil currently, and we're doing a podcast. He's actually talking to me from Brazil, and I'm at home. How you doing?
You're at home missing out. Would you like to tell the story?
Well, so I was gonna go to Brazil with him, but it was like last minute, and I almost had everything lined up, and then I realized my passport expired, and that was like an unfortunate, unworkaroundable obstacle. That close. Here we are.
I am so glad that I didn't cancel my
It would have been
my
bad.
my my Airbnb that I had or that I have because I was like this close, and then you made that remark just that
I said,
offhanded or
yeah, and I was like, good thing passports don't expire. Like, I legitimately was like, that's the one thing in this world that must just be forever. And you were like, they do expire. And I was like,
buddy. Even diamonds aren't forever.
yeah, they are.
No, they're not.
um, that's why Tesla's going out to those asteroids.
So, it's been pretty nice here so far. It's not as hot as I expected, but I'm also told that it's toward the end of summer right now. Um, but I think still it's really comparable to Florida. Um,
Except a lot prettier.
it is it is more beautiful. Um, I'll give it that. Um, they have palm trees and pine trees and all that jazz, but it reminds me of a combination of Florida, Tennessee, um, like North Carolina, because we have the beach here, but then mountains directly behind it. But in the mountains, there's all this granite that's been blown up by dynamite to make the roads and all that. But there's freaking banana trees on growing on the side of the mountains.
Mm.
So it's like it's mostly the same, and like the waterfalls look like those in the Carolinas and in Tennessee. Um, it's uh, it's pretty cool. I'm
So I guess you should say, like, where you are exactly in Brazil.
Yes, I'm getting there. And I'm mildly impressed. I even saw a monkey today, a little baby monkey. He was like this big, just running around and hopped from one part of the sidewalk to the other and right into the tree. And I am in Rio. So yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier, but I totally forgot because well, Brazil is like three-quarters of South America, or a little less than three-quarters of South America, and that's where I'm at. Was not my first place to try and come to, but because of the virus that shall not be named, um, really has altered some flight patterns. And what would have been like a 4 or 6 hour flight for me is now turned into a 20 or 24-hour flight to the places that I originally wanted to go.
Mm.
And I thought, well, okay, that's kind of out of the question. So I guess try and turn that negative into a positive as much as possible because I'm a firm believer, at least in this context, that something is better than nothing. So I was just researching flights to Rio, and I selected Rio, and now I'm here for almost 2 weeks in total.
Don't mind me.
Uh-huh.
I think that's better.
Um,
There we go.
yeah, the way
Um,
it was totally better.
yeah, the way it was originally. Um, what's it called? So like, how do you like it down there? I saw the pictures that you sent, and it's a kind of crazy the difference that you see in like how it looks. Like, there's a
Hmm.
lot more mountains, and you can see the valley just go straight upward, and it's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
crazy. It's kind of crazy to see that compared to like
Well,
anything else. I mean, I've only been from like I've only been from like New York to Florida. I mean, I've gone to Jamaica before, but like, I guess you really don't see that type of scale. Maybe I did. Maybe I forgot the tropical scale, but it was nothing comparable to that height. That kind of reminds me of like, well, this is gonna be stupid sounding, but what was that movie? That animated movie? Remember about there was the blonde dude with the Fu Manchu, and there was the dude with the black hair, short cut, and they visited an Aztec temple or something, and there was like that giant metal. You know what I'm talking about?
Indiana Jones?
No. It was like an animated movie. It wasn't.
No.
It was like one of those movies that like back
Disney, like Atlantis?
It's kind of like Atlantis, but it was like that. It's more comparable to Atlantis than anything else. But the one dude had like blonde hair. It was like two dudes, and one dude had black hair, and they ended up in this like Aztec environment. I remember there was this whole scene where they were like playing a form of basketball, but they were bouncing the ball from hip to hip, and they had to hit it through these rings that were sideways off the walls. There was like, yeah, so like instead of normal basketball where the hoop is like this, the hoops were sideways. And it was like apparently a more accurate representation of the first invention of basketball, which apparently Native Americans did or something like that. So it was like in homage to that. But long story short, McDonald's had these toys that would come out, and it was this like four-legged dog, and you like press it down and it would go, it would jump up, and it was like green. You don't know what I'm talking about at all.
This sounds like you're describing a dream or like part of a Clockwork Orange where the kids get high off the LSD milk or the acid milk and start just describing things randomly.
I want to know what kind of like animation movie that was. Once I say it, you'll know it. But like I don't even remember the name of it. But it was more comparable to, you know how there was those off-brand animation movies like Brother Bear, Atlantis, like you were saying.
Hey, well that was Disney, right?
Was it? That's
totally
what I'm saying.
Disney.
Was it?
And
that's remember
like
there was the
brand.
Sky
That's Primo.
Pirates? Do you remember the Sky Pirates movie?
No.
The kids Sky Pirates? That's the thing, is like there was all these like weird off-brand animated movies. Let's see, Sky Pirate. I'm gonna look it up on my phone real quick.
Oh
Sky
boy.
Pirates animated movies.
And so what I've noticed also, a lot of the poor people are
Treasure Planet.
Oh, Treasure Planet, yeah.
See what I mean? Don't act like I'm crazy. I'm gonna name another one. You're like, oh shit, that's right.
You're still crazy.
Yeah, still to a degree, but you know, now you get what I'm saying. Treasure Planet was the one, and then there was the blonde dude with the black hair. That makes no sense.
No, because dudes can't be
Blonde and black hair at the same time.
unless it's artificial.
Well, yeah, you can actually.
Super
You absolutely.
genetic mutation. Like blue eyes are a genetic mutation.
The road to El Dorado.
Oh yeah.
There you go. See, don't act like I'm over here making up a dream. You know exactly the movie. I didn't know the name, but it was like one of those off-brand movies. I don't even know if that was Disney or not, but remember that movie? They were up in the mountains and everything. Like that was like more. That's what I thought when I saw your picture. Just to wrap us all up.
Yeah, it was like cartoon Indiana Jones. I think all of those were Disney or Nickelodeon movies because Disney and Nickelodeon were just pumping out animation from the 90s until even just maybe 5 or 7 years ago.
The Road to El Dorado was DreamWorks.
But isn't DreamWorks owned by Disney?
Is it?
I believe so.
Is Dream...
Or I might be thinking of Pixar, Disney Pixar, because Pixar was originally owned by the Apple Computer Corporation. and they were doing animations and shorts, and then Disney bought them out.
No, they're not. No, they're not. DreamWorks are owned by mega media conglomerate NBC Universal, which in turn is owned by Comcast.
Yeah. The Umbrella Corporation.
They own everything from NBC Telemundo to Sci-Fi. Whoa, what? Wait, why Sci-Fi is thrown in there? Hold on. Why does that make so much sense?
How does Sci-Fi even exist now? Like the shows even like 10 years ago, whenever I was still watching,
the last show that I watched, like to come. You know what I mean? They're not Sci-Fi anymore. They're just to come movies.
It's like no, it's like
eventually.
The Sci-Fi Channel is like Sci-Fi Channel is like nonfiction now, but they were getting corny even back whenever I stopped watching them like a decade ago. The last series that I watched from Sci-Fi was Eureka, and it had Colin Ferguson in it, and he's a pretty decent actor. Not a lot. He's like, I don't think he's A-list. I think he's B-list, but he's not quite like famous B-list like Jean-Claude Van Damme. But he has that face that if you saw it, you would know it. Like he's been in like a lot of Maytag commercials in the last 5 or 6 years, and it was a pretty good show, but budget cuts and new writers and all that kind of stuff. There were like a lot of holes in the series of questions that never got answered, and like what is Section 8 and all that kind of stuff. But that was pretty cool. But yeah, Comcast, they own a lot of stuff, but it's just little companies, and then the larger company buys the smaller company, and the larger company buys the less larger company. It's like each umbrella gets larger and larger and larger.
Yeah.
And essentially you have, like, if you were to look at the very top of all these pyramids of the large organizations, there's like a dozen companies that control like 80% of the commerce in the entire world. It's kind of weird to think about. Just like in America, for beef production and manufacturing and distribution, I think 70 or 80% come from like 3, maybe 4 companies. I thought it was 4, but I was talking to a man at the coffee shop a couple of weeks ago, and he said it was 3, which I wouldn't put it past him, but equally as scary. It's like you don't have free market systems anymore, but yet people want to blame capitalism. But like the ultimate capital controls to allow these corporate government partnerships to thrive is the reason, and that is actually more fascistic and socialistic than capitalistic. So back to Brazil. It's pretty cool. You can't go anywhere in a straight line here. It's not like Florida where you can go from South Florida all the way up into the Carolinas in a straight line.
Ooh. You keep talking.
To basically New York. There's none of that here, and that's all because of the topography, which is pretty cool. But I've noticed a lot of the poor people kind of get pushed up into the mountains, and a lot of the more wealthy people, the pensioners, the expatriates, they have the
shore.
Yeah, and
it seems like that. I would imagine.
Yeah, that's kind of concerning to me. But
just like America.
Yeah, but even in comparison, like I'll send you some photographs that I can't show you and I won't show to social media about like certain places that I've gone to. It's just it's crazy. Kind of reminds me of like Benjamin Franklin's remarks of people being comfortable in poverty instead of raising themselves up. But it's also pretty difficult here because of a lot of capital controls. For example, you go to McDonald's, you have the option to enter their version of a social security number for meals so the government can track you. And that's pretty insane.
I apologize for the unprofessional nature of what just happened, but I don't care. I had to fix my monitor. It made no sense. I could barely see you. I was like looking through a minefield of just camera mounts, and I was like, my right eye started watering because this eye was just being blocked by camera mounts, and this eye saw you really well, except my camera mount was kind of blocking your forehead. So I was like starting to trip there. I was like, come on, I can't do this the whole time. I'm gonna go blind in my right eye just from it irritating. But holy shit, you're saying they have Social Security for food?
Yeah, so this has actually been a
Like, does
part
it
of
pay
part of
for
the
it,
plan.
or it just tracks them?
No, no. It's part of tracking, and actually, the Affordable Care Act in America is trying to do the same thing, and this relates back to those like private corporation government partnerships, where the government's going to say, okay, you've eaten too many Big Macs, therefore you're a burden to society. We're not going to pay for your heart surgery or your colonoscopy.
Wait, is it a requirement, or is it through a beneficiary assistance program?
Well, we know how these systems start. They're usually optional at first.
Okay, that's
and then
what I
they
was
become
wondering.
mandatory. Because you have to make them optional.
They become mandatory through forced poverty.
Well, yeah. So it's called the CPF number. And when I was at McDonald's the other day, I just wanted to compare McDonald's do an A/B comparison, and it was for the most part the same. The menu items are different. Actually, a lot of the menu items were different. But during checkout, toward the very end, there's an option to enter what's called the CPF number, and that's the equivalent of our Social Security number, and that goes in part to your credit score, kind of like the FICO, but more like the Chinese credit score system. So like your social credit score, and that's really scary. But you make those things voluntary at first, so you can further develop the program and like probe it and test it for accuracy and audit the information to make sure that it's true. And then in 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years time, you would make such things mandatory. And even more so mandatory, like where you have a system like Brazil, where you have public education, free education, and free hospitals. You have to track people and gain as much information from them as possible, so you can either accept or decline certain important or non-important surgeries, because it's all based off of what society deems as a benefit or a risk. Well, we all know what that is. Actually, it's just a whole bunch of bureaucrats and plutocrats, whatever.
Plutocrats? Are those like
it's
bureaucrats for Pluto?
Absolutely. Just making decisions, essentially unelected officials, because the intelligentsia knows more than you, and then they're going to punish you for the decisions that you've made. Whereas in a private system, I suffer for the decisions that I make. I don't have to suffer at the hands of the collective.
It's kind of like trippy, though, if you really do think about it, that if you're talking about furthering society, you really do have to place these restrictions, because it is kind of economically and also futile to have anything in a gluttonous manner. But that kind of goes for companies as well. And the big concern is that it won't be used responsibly. It'll only be enforced on the lower class, while the upper class get to just abuse it willy-nilly. But if you're really thinking about as a whole, if you want to further civilization, you do need to have these restrictions. It only makes sense that if we would have restrictions, or at least better recycle options where we can reuse or minimize to a great chance our actual disposal. And one way or another, I think what's going to happen is we're going to kind of like take away rights, and it's going to be like, reserve this or limit this. And then obviously people are going to get outraged. So they're going to be like, all right, that was a little too much, so we're going to adjust this. And it's like, but this company did this. Okay, we're going to put this on this. It's like, okay, but this is a little too much of this. And I think this is kind of the realistic nature. At least I'm hopeful, optimistic, that it's not going to be a solid decline or increase. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to rapidly have our rights stripped away. I think it's going to be a very long and slow battle. And
well, our rights have been stripped away ever since the foundation of this country, and we call those laws, because the inherent argument of rights, freedoms, and liberties are what's called positive rights and negative rights.
And it's all, and like rights definitely have a limitation, right? Because like everybody agrees to let you do what you want to do until it's this, right? Until like, yeah, no, you can hunt until you decide you want to hunt
And those opinions
1,000
vary.
of those animals a day.
Yeah.
Then it's like no more. So like even when we get down to it, like of course these rights are limited under circumstances. And if our population increases and our consumption of raw materials increases, then it only makes sense we would need more and more limitations on either population or consumption. Or, like I said, better ways to recycle or reuse options, or alternatives that we can outgrow the deficit with.
Yeah.
But I don't think humans are that good, and I don't think they're that bad either. And that's why I think it might be this weird jam of back and forth in a progressive stock market like ridge. And I think that's the direction we're going to continuously go. But as we all know, if you break apart one segment of that, you're going to see a huge decrease and also a huge increase. Well, that's interesting. It shows that you muted the mic.
I did. I had to say something important.
But that's interesting that Skype actually puts it up on the screen. Because that's literally, like, you know what I mean? Now somebody's going to know if you're, like, talking shit about them or something.
With such intricacies as life, there is not a uniform solution to a multitude of problems. And to some degree, I agree with you, but I think your solution still inherently lies in the hands of government, whereas someone that's more libertarian like me, I want as little government as possible, because I know in the history of histories that governments are what commit the most crimes and kill the most people overall. And that is an infallible truth.
Whoa. That's a very, that can go so many ways.
Absolutely.
That conversation can go so many ways. And that's
so
why,
regards,
and that's kind of why I said, like, what I said was, like, I don't think we gotta, like, I think that we're gonna see a lot of changes occur, but I don't think it's possible that, you know, I used to have this saying, and I don't know if I heard it from somewhere, but it was like nothing important happens overnight. Like nothing, like, you know, essentially like nothing happens in a day. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
If it's life changing,
person,
it's not gonna be like boom, life changing.
One person gets killed, it's a tragedy. 1,000 people will get killed. It's a statistic.
Yeah.
And that's a sad truth. I can't remember if it was Karl Marx or Joseph Stalin who said that. One of the Marxist communist and/or communist leaders, I believe, said that. But like when it comes to pollution and automobile production and manufacturing and like photovoltaic cells and all that kind of stuff, we're not at that point yet, and we're trying to force it unnaturally through market subsidies, which actually artificially increase the cost of products. And this goes back to just the one example I gave last time whenever I was talking about automobile insurance, and Alabama being one of the last states to mandate it. Well, as soon as it was mandated and the lobbyists essentially bribed the state legislature to mandate it by law, the car insurance premiums went up in that state precipitously for several years because now it was mandated, there was no market competition. So once you start allowing government to become the economy, it becomes less supply and more demand. And it's more demand from you and not supply from them. Like here in Brazil, like there's plastic and trash on the streets everywhere. And I've been in I've been in almost half the states in the United States. So I can with fair certainty say that I have a good representative sample of a compare and contrast of at least America to here. And there's so much beauty and potential, but people have grown accustomed to the gaping holes in their sidewalks and the trash on the streets. And The issue with that isn't laws, because it's illegal to do all that stuff already. The issue is the morality of the people and the morality of the legislature and the morality of the police who choose or not to choose to enforce those laws and issue those citations.
Yeah.
Or even the police that get paid off to do so or to not enforce them.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you really do think about it, like, it was 300 years ago, we were killing people on horseback, like, left and right. Like, you kind of had no choice, and you saw it, and it was a common thing. And so when you kind of think about how many generations of people have existed in a line from that time period, it's not that many. And when you think about the increase of suppression and repression, also needed and required, because again, people were just not that long ago killing left and right, and also like, hey, stop fucking these animals, you're like spreading these crazy ass viruses, or like, hey, stop drinking out of this like same water that these like, it takes like a lot of restrictions of what those people be like, whoa, you can't take away my right to drink out of my horse's water. That's my horse's water. I can drink out of it. It's like, yeah, you can, but you're gonna die, and like we can't really talk to you if you drink like that.
But that would also be true evolution right there, survival of the fittest, and then people learning from those examples.
Yeah, survival. So that wouldn't be survival of the fittest. That'd be survival of default. that would be whoever exists afterward, which that's actually what they believe is the actually ruling evolution. Survival of default, which is like, congratulations, you survived for no explained reason so far as the lead theory.
It's like, fumbling your way through the top, or like just fumbling your way through exist. And you do
exactly
anomalies, no statistical probabilities. It's like, wow, how'd this idiot become a leader?
Yeah.
Well, it's prone to happen. But it's quite rare. Well, it's also like
regardless what you
again,
attempt
arguing
to do.
Statistics, people have this, and understandably so, psychological fear of swimming in the ocean because of sharks, especially where I live by the beach near Daytona.
Or never even being in water, you have this fear of sharks.
And I swam in the sharks.
Instincts.
Yeah.
Big ass fish in water, because we don't move in water very well. You're instinctually supposed to think that there's anything in there. Like, your body's designed to be like, there might be 1 million giant lizards in this water right now, and possibly never have there ever been. Like, let's just say this is a different planet. Let's just say there's nothing but water, and you're in a giant ocean planet. Your brain's gonna tell you there's everything in there, because you can't maneuver it very well. So it knows you're fucked. Your brain's pretty much saying, hey, dude, you're fucked. You enjoying the swim? You're fucked. You're fucked. If something comes up, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, in probability, that's absolutely true. But then back to fear, statistically, I think you have a greater chance of dying by being hit on the head by a falling coconut from a tree than actually being bitten by a shark.
Yeah, and being killed by a shark is 1 to 0 per year. That's kind of crazy when you actually think about it. Like, getting bit's one thing, but like death's by it.
Actual death.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think where I live, it's like between 15 and 20 bites a year, or maybe a little bit more. And I've seen them
totally packed with those sharks. That's the first thing you hear is great surfing, but lots of sharks. They'd be biting people.
Yep. But even then, it's quite low.
Misidentification
as a whole, but it's almost like a bell curve. Like, it's statistically low, but we're at the highest point of that curve, where we're at the highest point of the lowest probability, or of low probability. So we're number 1 in statistical zeros.
Yep.
So
yeah, surfing's interesting. You ever been surfing?
No, I've often thought about it, but I have not.
So I went surfing one time, and so I can tell you my experience. First time I went surfing, only one time. Anyway, it took me half an hour to get past the starting wave line, because these waves are like 15 feet tall, and you got this board that's like 7 feet long, and you don't know what you're doing, so like you don't know how anybody gets it over there, because you don't see that in the movies. You just see the people out in the water. You don't see how they get past the wave line. So I'm getting ragdolled down the shore the entire time. And my brother gets all the way out there, like, immediately. It takes me, like, 30 minutes to get out there. I finally get out there. I'm exhausted. You gotta swim 300 feet out into the water. And that's terrifying. Especially because, like, all you're thinking... First of all, you got sunglasses. And if you're like me, you got polarized sunglasses. And that's a little scarier than having normal sunglasses. Because you can actually see through the reflection in the water. And that's
a little bit.
Yeah. And so every little tiny reflection or the little seaweed that would get caught in the wave as it moved by, you would just think is a little shark wave, shark fin or something. And then you're thinking shark. And then you see a wave. And then you hit that wave. That's all you think about. And then you fall off. And you're in the water. And you're like, oh my God. And you get up onto the... You're like terrified. You get up back up on the surfboard. And then you're like... Shark. And then you see a wave. And then you go again. And it's really like psychologically tormenting your reward system with your fear system. You know what I mean? It would be like jumping into a tiger's den over and over and calling it a sport. Calling it like tiger bungeeing. Would you know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. Like,
yeah, it's like a black hole. It says you can't see the totality of your surroundings, and then again, it's also programmed fear through the television and cartoons and Shark Week on Discovery Channel. And then I guess integrated primordial fears, which is justifiable and understandable. So that's where those conflictions come into play, and your risk-reward ratio is because you want to surf, but it's like, oh, well, is it really worth catching this for like 15 seconds, like 8 times over the course of an hour, and then your risk exposure is high, but your reward ratio is low, but your reward ratio actually, in terms of euphoria, exceeds or can exceed your anxiety level out there.
Yeah, or the back and forth causes your brain not to be able to interpret one or the other, just
Yep.
only to use both.
So that would be like general innervation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm happy, mad, sad at the same time. What is going on? It's like I just had a child.
I've experienced this before. I've experienced this recently. Yeah, so a situation happened that actually sparked stress and triggered like my anxiety. So it shot up my heart rate, right? But at that moment, I realized that this is only a situational anxiety trigger that I am experiencing. And if I was somebody else, they may not be experiencing this trigger. Nor if you took a normal human or other animal, they would experience what I'm experiencing. Because of X, Y, and Z leading me to this point. And at that moment, I stopped having anxiety, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, I wonder if you can convince yourself to turn the anxiety into a adrenaline rush. And so it's kind of like eating a sandwich and imagining a different flavor. Like if you're eating turkey and you imagine roast beef, you start to taste roast beef. I kind of tried to do that with an anxiety trigger. And I was like, for 1 second, my brain forgot about the anxiety. And I was like, this is an adrenaline rush. That's what this is. And I'm standing there, I'm like, how funny is that though? The difference between driving a motorcycle really fast and getting that feeling and somebody being yelling at you is only how your brain is interpreting that moment. Yeah. And so at that moment, I was like, yo, you could definitely, I mean, it's difficult, but you can technically trick your brain into taking an anxiety attack and turning it into a euphoric adrenaline rush.
Well, and I think to some degree...
Like similar to hunters right before, after an 8-day hunt, when they got that shot lined up, and you see them, especially watching this new show, Meat Eater, that I've been watching. It's not new, it's new to me. But they get, like, you see the hunters all the time. They're like, my heart is racing right now. I need to calm down. And it's because they just went 8 days looking for this animal, and now here it is, and this one shot could fuck it up or kill it. And you're like... boom, 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 boom. And you can interpret that as terrifying. Or you can interpret that as like moments to live for. You know what I mean? That you can never achieve normally.
Yeah, and when it comes to hunting and fasting, you're mentioning going multiple days without eating. I've seen, and well, I've read and watched several videos of people that do extended periods of fasting temporarily have increased heart rates,
Mm.
but then also subside, and that subsides, and then people go into mild states of euphoria where they feel great. Um, and then back to anxiety or panic attacks, I think the adrenal glands are triggered um, during elevated periods of anxiety and panic attacks as well. But then to turn that into something that was euphoric would have to be,
Synesthetic.
your serotonin, your dopamine, your
You wouldn't really
norepinephrine,
be
all that kind of stuff.
experiencing the same thing, but you could convince your brain that they are similar.
Well, that would mean you would eventually seek out
Yeah,
um,
it's a slippery
discomfort.
slope. It would be a
Yeah,
slippery slope, but it
that
kind
would,
of is a test to the adversity and capability or plasticity of the human ingenuity. It's like one of
neuroplasticity.
those, huh? Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity.
Yeah, yeah. I've never gone to that lake, but so speaking of lakes, I've been looking at kayaks, and I kind of want to get a kayak. And you said you're gonna be down for getting a kayak.
Yeah,
Would
I
you?
don't see why not. I have a waterproof camera. I have a three-axis gimbal or a five-axis gimbal now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I want to like. I think it'd be really cool because like again, I've been watching this show Meat Eater, and I watched all of it on Netflix, which is not all of it. It's technically like season 1, season 4, season 9, part 1, and season 9, part 2. So I'm missing a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm missing a lot, but I'm gonna find that probably on Amazon Prime Video and watch the rest of it. But it's really been evoking this feeling inside of me, because like you always hear people talk about like when they go up to Alaska and they do that hunting, gathering, aka like hunting, storing, skinning, freezing, meat racks. Like, oh, I gotta get firewood, and then the winters come. Like, it's
Hmm.
they're a lot happier because there's not much else to worry about. You don't gotta worry about anything else except for that. And I guess it's an acceptance of your mortality if you do not do it, or if it does not happen. That is the natural course. The more that I think about it, because I guess as civilization goes, we kind of fight those mortal coils. You know, when something breaks or something's not working in our body, we go to the doctor. We're like, fix us, take this out, fix this, stitch this up. But like when you're out there in the cabin in the woods and you break your leg, shit, you're not getting any more firewood. You're probably gonna die unless you find firewood around your house. And then if you do, that's a learning experience that you teach and carry onward. But besides that, like the simplicity of knowing, do this, do this, do this, and that's it, because that's all you can control, gives them this sense of peace. And I like it because you really do worry day to day about the future because you're kind of built with this instinct, not instinct, but you're kind of beaten into the head that you need to get a certain amount of money by a certain amount of age, or have a certain job, or have a certain backup plan, or have your ducks in a row, or else you're going to live this way and you're not going to like this way. But
Hmm.
really, I mean, we can experience in our own life that like none of what they told us was true so far. So
Yeah.
it,
Well,
it
mm,
no, no, no. So
ladies
so
first.
so inappropriate. Um, so what I was gonna say was I like, so I want to get the kayaking going because like I don't know, I like the idea of like being able to just go out somewhere, and especially like I wanted to always get a boat, but the boat idea is one, too expensive, two, to get a motor to be able to afford that, and then also to have some knowledge on how to repair a motor, which will probably happen every single time you try to go out, is not just, it's not only expensive, but it's unlikely and it's unfun sounding. And you know what boat stands for, about another grand. So like now I'm like, all right, why don't I get a kayak? And, then there's always the option of kayak fishing, which I used to fish when I was younger, but I never fished really often since then. But I was very good at fishing. But also, those were just moments where you were kind of focused on this is all you're doing. And I feel like as you get older, you get so stimulated or so overwhelmed with stimulation that you kind of yearn for these moments of simplicity. Like we were talking about on the phone earlier today. And I think like the idea of being able to get your kayak and see, the nice part is it's easily maneuverable with a car. Like I can transport this with a car. And that's a big thing for me. Boat, nowhere to store it. That's a whole nother storage fee. Not only that, you need like a truck, trailer, thousands. But I was like, with a kayak, we can pretty much go where I want to go. Like, and you can still relax on them. Seems like the seats and everything are really nice, like the ones I'm looking at. And my budget limit, like honestly, since we're going to be jumping into it, it's going to be like just 4 is the cap, realistically, that I want to spend. And it looks like you can get some really good ones. Like there's one that I want to buy, and it seems like what you really want, what I want. So there's 2 differences, which I just learned about all this kayak stuff. So I'm going to kind of rant about this. But there's 2 different types of kayaks. There's a sit in and a sit on. Yeah. Yep. And a
high center of gravity.
Yeah, and a sit in is more comparable to the normal canoe or similar to the whitewater rafters. Some of them range to the hip line, or some of them are knees to the feet only. But then the sit-ons are like literally just sitting on a fucking board. But some of them, as you pay more money and higher quality, get these chairs in line. And the normal chairs, like if you're paying like $100, $150, are just the plastic ass mold. That's it. Then you pay like $250, $300. It comes with this round plastic back that's on a clamshell design, if you know what I'm talking about. So it comes up and down like that, and it's got tension straps from here to here like a hunting post. So it's very flimsy. It rocks back and forth. It seems like once you lean like forward or this, it's very loose. Now I don't know fucking anything, so I love how I'm giving my opinion about all these kayaks and everything, but this is just what I'm seeing so far. When you get into the $350, $400 range, the seats look like fold-up chairs, and they're solid metal, and they're strapped in, and they look like there's no tension going to be lost. And I'm like, in my head, this is the issue I've been having. Everybody says, get a used one, or only spend $100, or only spend $150, $200. You don't want to spend a lot in your first one. I understand that. I really do. But if I do use this more than 2 times, and I spend only $150, $200 on it, and the seat is shit with my already lazy ass lower back, I'm not going to enjoy spending essentially double that amount again on a better one that I'm not realistically going to be able to sell the old one for. It'll probably just disappear into storage or something, you know what I mean? Like, how many times I've used successfully been like, oh yeah, I could just sell it, and then boom, gone next day. Or boom, gone 3 days. Or even a week. Or even 2 weeks. It's usually months and months and months. So, I'm like, my dilemma is, if you don't spend $350 or $300, $400, your seat kind of looks like shit.
Yep.
I really don't know how shit those plastic shell-shaped fold-ups are, because they're very common, high-rated, mass-produced model. So they gotta be mid-quality, but you know what I mean? It's like we all have this instinct to get that red new iPhone with the gold trim just because it looks like Iron Man. Even if they raise the price $200 because of the color, we'll do it because there's that instinct in us just to want it to be better than somebody. That's all it is. So I'm fighting that instinct, trying to decide if the seat's really that important for something that might be one and done hobby. But it seems very important. Like, look at the seat I'm sitting in. Like, everybody knows seating is important, and it seems like that's the number one thing that holds them back.
Yeah. And
for
as I'm
a
sitting
sit
here
on,
right now,
for a sit on, at least.
Yeah. Seats are important in period. As I'm sitting here right now, I've adjusted myself 3 or 4 times, and I'm continuing to adjust myself because it is so uncomfortable in this chair. So yeah, seating is important. However, if that's like the mass-produced highest rated, what if those are the people that don't necessarily know quality?
No, 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 you're exactly right. But you know what I mean? Even if it is, you're 100% right, and that's exactly what it is. It's the, I don't know, what's the example? It's the Honda. It's the Honda. It's the Honda. It's like, it's reliable, it's not going to sink, it's pretty stable, and it doesn't feel the best, it's not the best looking, but it's going to get the job done, and you're not really going to know if you don't fucking know the difference anyway. But then, like, when you buy the other seats, it's like, this is a BMW or a Lincoln. Like, you can tell they put the extra detail into the seats and the designs for comfort, luxury, versus just form function.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's not that form function's bad, but for longevity, form function definitely needs to be perfected. And that's the difference, is you need good ergonomics for form function, is that even a word? When you say something too many times, it loses its meaning.
Oh yeah.
But
Well, there's devaluation of words, but ultimate form and ultimate function ultimately rely on the individual. So if you wanted the best of both of those, you would have something made for yourself, like a custom suit. So
there are seat attachments. I did notice what looks like a slip-on, but it looked closer to a lawn chair slip-on instead of like what you would imagine would be cushioned. It didn't have cushion. It looked like that material, the fold-up chairs. It looked like that material, and it looked like you slid that on top of the seat, and it looked like that gave you a little bit extra support. So maybe that solves the problem. Maybe that's it. But I'll tell you what, I have no ass. I have no ass at all. So if I'm gonna sit on anything for a long time, I need all that support.
and a lot of your popular models come with the opportunity of third-party attachments, and then a lot of your higher end, and this is true for almost anything. A lot of your higher end products will offer first-party and third-party attachments. So a cup holder or a rod holder or an outboard mount for your kayak or something, because like you can put a motor on those kayaks. Well, not all of them, but some of them. I've seen it. It exists. Or you can put a
Well,
motor on.
so the most popular one is not engine propelled or gasoline propelled or even electric. The most popular one is foot pedal based. And what's very cool, like, so this is very interesting to me because I love being, I guess you know what it is. It's like if you can get interested in puzzles, well, then you learn like cool puzzle makers and different types of puzzles. And then like you learn the whole thing about it. You know what I mean? So I guess I really love learning all the intricacies that you don't see from the outside. Just like you don't know how the inside of a McDonald's work if you've never worked on the inside of McDonald's. You have no clue the crazy shit that happens. And that's just a fact. And all jobs are like this. But you never know. So I like the intricacies. So there's these, and they run $1,500 to $2,000. This is the base price of these types of things. But they got an insert that goes through the metal, sticks about 2 feet down underneath it. One is a propeller attachment where it goes down and it's a rotating propeller, and you have a bicycle foot attachment. And so and it's like, I guess this is ideal for if you're fishing and you're just trying to like maneuver without, like, oh, there's a fish. You know what I mean? Like, ideally, you just pedal with your feet, and then you're like. Mm-hmm. But then there's another design, because the first thing I thought was, well, that's kind of pointless, unless you absolutely know the depth of the seaweed, and how often, if you're a fisherman, are you in or close to the fucking edge where the fish hide? So you're gonna get stuck all the time. So,
well, I wonder too, in a specific place like Mosquito Lagoon, where it can get as shallow as like 4 to 6 inches if you could even traverse.
And so there's another design that I saw that's really cool. And you would not expect this, but underneath of the boat, little flippers. And it's a bicycle pedal design on the top, but they're flippers that move the boat. And those are only like mounted right underneath. So they give you a little bit more of a raise, similar to a surfboard. So you'd have more mobility in that circumstance. And that's awesome. And usually these boats are wider too. They like look more like a small rescue boat. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But they're really, really cool. So, it's really interesting, like, learning all this stuff, like, one of the differences. I don't think I want a sit-in, because the sit-ins, they say, if you flip them, they fill up with water, and it's very complicated learning how to unflip them once they're filling up with water. And not only that, while you're going like this, depending on what type of design or what you're doing, the water gets into the boat, and there's no bailing holes. In the sit-ons, there's bailing holes that already drain the water as you're going. Like, this is like the little intricacies that you don't see from the outside that you learn as you start looking into kayaks. And I really like that because it's like, even if I'm not into it, this is really interesting. You know what I mean? But they're really going into it. And it looks pretty legit. So like, it looks like number one thing is you want like a good seat because you want to feel secure if you're on a sit-on. Otherwise, it kind of feels like you're just using your core to keep you on. And I feel like that's going to be a scary feeling. But I think another misconception is the amount of strength you require in your lower back. Because what I've seen is people talk about how you got to keep your hips loose. And they show a girl going like this, and the canoe like goes like this. And it's all from her hips. But when you think about fishing, you think about like that. And they say if you go like that, you're going to feel tippy because you have no strength support. So you have no control of which way to angle your body if you started to swing one way or the other. So you essentially want to have a good seat so that you're all the way back like this, fishing like this. You don't got to worry about it, which means you need to have footrests or footrest inserts that have your feet jammed so that you're not straight. You're kind of buckled like that. So you got your hips spread outward to give you a brace and your feet are clamped on and then your hips are loose and you're like locked in. And it's like, there's so much to it. But I really like what's really cool is like the boat weights range from 35 pounds to like 150 pounds. And 150 was the most I've seen. But if you have difficulty carrying these, one, they design all these to have handles on them. And the really good ones have really good handles. Most of them range around 50 pounds, especially the one I'm looking at buying, which is like all I really need, to be honest with you. I was trying to convince myself to get a dry storage bin on it, but the more I think about it, I can buy a waterproof bag and just bring that with me if I want to. But here's the thing. The seats are shit. If I'm trying to compromise to save money and to bring a waterproof bag to save money, I'm getting a bad seat in that gig. So it's like, well, you want to spend the extra money for the seat. Literally, you're kind of jammed into that. You know what I mean? It would be like, here's the new Google Pixel phone, but it's not 5G, and so it's 2021.
Well, 5G is not always what it's made out to be.
I understand unless you're in an ultra hotspot. Yeah. That's what I heard. But to wrap up the kayaking, how cool would it be if we could just like up the Matanzas Strip or up near like the Tomoka State Park, there's that like bayou and everything, and you always see that dude parked on the side. There's trucks parked on the side, and they're out there fishing. It's that strip that's just a bunch of trees over, and then it opens up. We drove down it when we took the long scenic route. How cool would it be to be able to get into those mangroves and go into the woods, like into the woods that are over flooded, that you would never be able to see or go to anyway. But the thing that kind of freaks me out is somebody told me, well, I don't like gators. And all of a sudden now I got this scene in my head from like the sci-fi movie, like, you know, the crocodile or alligator sci-fi movies where the gator always like, like yanks the thing.
And the alligator's
I'm
like
like,
60 feet long.
yeah, it comes out of the water and like grabs the thing and fucking yanks it in like Jurassic Park, whatever that thing was, Monosaurus or whatever. It's like I don't want to. Now I'm like kind of freaked out, and I'm like, well, what if you're in the mangroves and there's like a Florida panther that's climbed through the thing? Like I got all these going through my head now. I'm like, okay,
No way a Florida panther's going to be that close to the ocean.
Well, not the ocean. You know what I'm talking about? Not maybe mangroves are the wrong words. You know the trees that have the roots that are sticking out of the water because the tide comes up and then goes down.
Mangroves.
Those are mangroves. So you know how like when it's down here, it's just like dry. But then like when the water's up here, like we could get on a canoe and like go deep into the woods and like essentially see like parts of nature that you can't normally see. Like what I really liked about that Meat Eater show was that like there's valleys and mountains and valleys and mountains where you don't see any civilization at all.
Yeah.
And you're in control of it and you're also out there. And then like the aspect to like potentially, I don't know, maybe I'll get into fishing. Maybe it's like a little boring just doing that. Maybe I'll bring a fishing pole, nothing crazy. But like if I get into fishing then, that adds a whole other aspect to it. Because then it's like, it would be really cool. But one thing about that brings me back, the sit-on versus the sit-in, is the sit-on, they say, is the easiest for getting in and out of the water. So, like, if you get on top or out of the water. So, then that started making me think, like, I'm really terrified of the water for shark reasons, right? That's a big one. But another thing is, could you imagine, like, how cool would it be, like, having the opportunity, or at least the ability, to be able to hop off your like kayak real quick, maybe in like Blue Springs Park or something, and like be able to grab sea cucumbers or like mollusks or whatever, and like then bring them home and like cook them and eat them? I'm like, that sounds so cool. Like just having the ability to do that. So I think I'm leaning more towards to sit on for the ability to do more. You know what I mean? But the thing is, your legs are kind of like exposed the entire time, and if you're going in the water, then you're gonna get wind shooting up your crotch 24/7.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be cold.
Well, that's not so bad.
It's not so bad, but you gotta plan accordingly.
In the summertime, it's not bad, at least.
Yeah, but if you're like, which I plan to use it like all year round, and I even want to go like plan trips around kayaking. Like I want to like be able to go, like I see these videos, these people going out in these lakes, and you see like the alpines in the background and the fog coming in, and like I want to do that. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a hunter, but I want to do those things. I want to be able to like hike and kayak and like have a campsite, because like you can do all these things now. What's really cool is these kayaks come with a lot of attachments now, like floating coolers and floating storage containers that drag on the back. So while you're going, you can like carry tons of shit with you. You can just bring it with you. And the coolest thing I saw was like these wheels that strap around the canoe so that you just drag it. If you're lazy, it pretty much gives you an axle on the back of your canoe so that you can just pull it. And those range pretty well. But I don't know, man. You know, I watched this video today, and it was a Red Bull video of these people kayaking. And the one brother like got in an accident or whatever and almost died, and then ever since that day, like they got into extreme whitewater rafting. Now I don't want to do that, but they were just talking about how like they were not happy in life, and when he almost lost his life, they realized they needed to seize each day. And like he said this line, I mean everybody tells you stuff like this, but he said this line. He said, it's all about doing something that makes you feel fulfilled. And that's really what it is. It's all about doing something that makes you feel like this was worth it. And it's not stopping till you find what that thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I just decided that I'm not going to let suppressive ideas of like people saying, oh, I shouldn't be traveling right now, or global pandemic or whatever, stop me from doing what I want to do.
Yeah. And I mean, pandemic's like a tiptoey subject. And no one's saying that it's not a serious subject, but I think there's also an argument to be made with how much you do limit your expression of life, and not to say that we don't need to limit certain things, but at the end of the day, how much can you limit and how much do you need in order to feel okay? That's a real question that needs to be on the table. And if this restrictions make us not feel okay, that was a really easy thing to happen and make us feel that way. And if that's the case, then how come it was that easy? How come we didn't have things in place to prevent this, or even now how we feel or how we achieve this? And yeah.
It still sucks that, well, I'm just even tired of talking about genetic mutations that happen every day and people don't even realize it. But it was a conscious decision of mine. I'm like, the best time for me to do what I want to do right now is when I don't have a job. And I realized that if I would have continued, well, there were multiple realizations, but I also realized that if I would have continued to work as I was, I would have had 1 week, maybe 2 weeks off of paid vacation, and I would have hustled to have 1 or 2 weeks off. I would have been, stressed out trying to do as much as I can in those 2 weeks, and I go back and work 10-hour days or 12-hour days or 14-hour days. And screw that. Be humble. Something is better than nothing. But I'm tired of putting myself in that position where people say, oh, well, something is better than nothing. Well, I'm tired of that capitulation.
Yeah, it's a true argument to make. Like, is it... You got a ghost behind you, dude.
Yeah, I just noticed this picture's crooked and it's annoying me now.
You moving it? That's so weird.
Yeah,
you're like,
it's behind.
It's literally like...
I can see myself in the in my little box here. That does look a little Scooby-Doo-ish.
Yeah. All right, hold on. I'm gonna take a piss real quick. So we're gonna take a pause break. All right.
Have fun.
How do I pause this bitch? I think it's this button. I don't want to end it. All right, pause. All right, we're back, and Justin's gonna be showing us pictures of the Brazil.
So formal.
Go.
So I've been here since the 16th or the 17th, and so far this is what I have.
That's his passport.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's nothing important on this because I'm not editing anything out.
No, this is the taxi driver that ended up taking me to my hotel here, and he ended up being from Brazil, from just one city away from, one major city away from where I decided to stay, and I was able to talk with him a little bit, which was kind of nice and coincidental. Our flight was delayed, but I was able to meet him and talk to him about some things, which was pretty cool, and he was pretty insightful and quite helpful. And then just being stuck in the airport and mad and doing currency exchange in Miami and sleeping on the floor while I had a 10-hour holdover. So my flight changed from...
I thought we were going to be seeing pictures of Brazil.
10 hours to... Oh, you're about to. My flight changed from 10 hours to like 20 plus hours. And now we're in Brazil. So this is day one on the way back from the airport. Got a couple clips going here. This would be the Botafogo area. This is day one at the beach. I slept for like 2, maybe 3 hours, and I went directly to the beach. Got a sunburn, real bad. I'm still peeling from that. I got another sunburn the other day, and I'm peeling from that already. So I'm like a double peel. And this is right by Copacabana. This is just another popular beach. And then this is Jesus Christ. Not as an expletive, but as Cristo, yes.
Cristo, Cristo.
Yep. And so I got a bunch of photographs that I need to process, but this is just kind of what the rural life looks like and what the views look like from Brazil. So it's pretty cool. I like it so far. This is a national park of Tijuca, and whoops, it was closed the day that we went, so I went back another day, and it was well worth it. I think I no, I don't have any photographs of that yet. I I recorded more video than photographs of Tijuca. Um, and then I ended up taking a subway, which was freaking sweet. I'd never been on a subway before, so that was the first. And then this is just inside of a neighborhood, a legitimate favela, like graffiti everywhere, bullet holes in the sides of houses. That's the view from where I'm staying. Another view from where I'm staying. A view on the way to a restaurant. And all those are houses, man, stacked right on top of each other. All the poor people are forced into the mountains. And that should be most of that. And now, oh, this is from yesterday. So,
Move your mouse. Move your mouse.
Yep, I'm moving my mouse. I saw that at the same time you said it.
Yeah, like it itched all of our OCD nerves at the same time.
And this was by far the best experience. This is
horrible for people who are just listening to this. But
It's
visually,
okay.
it's pretty cool.
Well, you can't have everything you want. And this is a place called Isla Grande, so the translation would be like Great Island or Grand or Big
That's funny.
Islands.
I grew up on Grand Island, New York.
That's hilarious. This is from today, just a few hours ago.
Yeah,
This
I
was
really like
originally.
these photos. The next one with the mountains. Nope.
Oh yeah,
The next
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Nope.
coming up.
This next one right here. That
Yep.
was like a really good one. And
Yeah.
that's what I was talking about that movie. I was like, that's what really like reminded me of that movie. Um, do you got more? Or
And
is that it?
um, now here's
Could
more.
you
So this is
imagine? Could you imagine like I know not necessarily going to Brazil, but like how cool would it be to be able to like bring kayaks and like be able to go up into areas that like you could never normally go?
Oh, it would be so awesome, and that's something that I would like to do if I had more time. Like I would have spent 2, 3, or 4 months here. And this goes back to the Ilha Grande trip from yesterday. It's a 3-hour bus ride. It's quite honestly, it's between Rio and Sao Paulo, and it was well worth it. 2.5 to 3 hour bus ride. The bus was loaded with people, and we got on a boat, and we spent the entire day island hopping and going to restaurants um, throughout the islands. It was quite the thing to do. This town, I can tell, was a relatively peaceful town because there was no graffiti in the town. And here's a couple others that I have, and then I'll just cut my screen share, which I like. This was nice, and the water was almost the perfect temperature, and the color of the water, you can tell there's no almost no contamination in the water, even though there are some large commercial ships that pass and port in this area. The water is not dirty at all. It's pretty clear. You can see through it for several feet easily. And this was toward the end of the day where the sun was setting, and I had the most beautiful colors and saturation of the colors. It's just it's amazing. This actually reminds me a little bit of like Lake Lure, North Carolina, but with palm trees, because North Carolina and Lake Lure uh, do not have those. And this will be like one of the last things I show. And so these are the boats that we took. 30 to 50 people on each boat. I think I was the only English speaker there, so that was fun, or at least native English speaker. I didn't hear anybody else speaking English. You had a few people from like Venezuela and Colombia and Uruguay and Argentina, and then they all huddled together like freaking gangsters at the back of the boat trying to bully people into playing certain music. But that's no surprise. So yeah, that's my trip in a nutshell so far. And some reiterations, some photographs. But that's it. That's it. That's all I've published so far. And I have more to come. And now I need to figure out how I stop sharing.
There you go.
There we go.
Now how do I
Did
fix
it.
this? Boom. Boom.
So yeah, I would definitely recommend. Um, definitely recommend doing that. And one of my other trips that I have coming up in the next couple of days are to some museums and to a beach that's about between 2 and 2.5 hours away as well. Um, that's going to be pretty epic. I was kind of bummed out yesterday because I forgot my waterproof housing for my camera, so I couldn't take any photographs or record any video underwater. But it is what it is. I had my backups with me, but I couldn't do any underwater photography or videography. So in the next couple of days, I'll hopefully be able to make up for it.
Mm-hmm. So, you're down for kayaking? I'm gonna join a club, dude. I'm telling you.
Is there like the Rotary Club for kayaking?
Yeah, I'm gonna join a club. I don't know. Like, maybe there's like a club out there, but like, I'm trying to get a couple people at work into like getting a kayak as well.
Well, actually, I think
Would you
I
be into
think
just kayaking or like fishing? Fish
I would be
kayaking.
in the boat. I would be in the boat because
Both.
I would eat what I catch or I would sell the catch.
That's what I
'Cause
think would be cool. Would be
it's
catching
pretty
like bait.
common in like Daytona, Ponce Inlet, Port Orange, New Smyrna for people to sell the catches to the restaurants. And like once they trust you and that you bring in quality product, it becomes easier.
Especially
So I would
Chinese.
definitely do that.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, well, there's a lot of like Asian
That's what they
population
did
that
in Great Island.
fish off
That's
the
not
piers.
even like I'm not being racist or anything, but
I'm not
like
even either. I'm serious. It's like
in
a
Grand
lot of
Island, New York, there was you could, and I'm talking 15-year-olds were
yeah.
selling fish just to the local Chinese restaurants. They're probably still there to this day.
Well, Ponce Inlet was the same way. You had a
I
lot of
was
Creole
there.
merchants that did that, and yeah, a lot of Asian population that'll catch for their family and they'll turn around and sell some of that to the restaurant.
Hmm.
Sure, why not? I think that's cool. I know an owner of one of the restaurants in New Smyrna who, in a total d-bag move, brings his truck with his like 40-foot long boat, parks it right in front of his restaurant. And him and his dude bros pull the fish out of the cooler that they just caught that day and walk into the front of the restaurant that he owns with all the fish, and then right into the back showing people that the fish is fresh.
Well, so like that's what I'm like wondering though is like so for example, obviously the sit-ons you're exposed to the elements. It's self-bailing, so you don't really got to worry about it filling with water ever. But you're exposed to the sun, wind, rain. Also, if you're planning to push through some tree branches, you're gonna be scraping your legs and everything. So you got to plan for that. So it's like, what are you planning to do more? Are you planning are you planning for just relaxing, going into places, or like pushing through places, or going through speed? You know what I mean? So I'm like, if you want to push through places and you don't want like the elements touching you, you'd want to sit in. But I kind of want to sit on. You know what I mean? But the sit-ons, because they're essentially just like you just sit there. You got like a board. You got cup holders. And most of them have fishing hole racks built into them anyway. So like there will be holes already. So like the ones that are around the $300 range that I'm looking at are 4 fishing holes on it, which is just holes for resting your rods. And then some of them, like the Angler 10, is $300, and that has a fishing rod mount that slides into
Hmm.
it, and that's pretty dope. You know what I mean? So you can be like out there like holding on to that thing like that. But then, like I said, then there's like the pedal editions. You know, essentially, man, like as I'm getting older, like this is the thing. I just quit nicotine recently, and you gotta find something to do, and I'm just looking for something to do, and I think that would be really peaceful, and I think that'd be really cool.
Healthy distractions.
Yeah, like learning to develop serotonin and dopamine in the real world. You know what I mean?
Naturally, yes.
Yeah, and like the reality versus expectations. It's kind of like I'm a very impulsive person, so like I'm really I'm not buying it tomorrow. I'm not buying it next week. It's gonna be probably around like the end of March if I do decide to buy it, which is gonna be a yes, but it's gonna be by the end
Well,
of March. So I'm
and
gonna have
that'll
time
give
to
you
think
time
about
to
it.
do research. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've looked at the ones that I want, and I know like I pretty much want realistically the one that looks the dopest in my opinion that I really want is this one that's called the it's called the Yellowfin. Let's see if I can share screen. It's called the Yellowfin 100 kayak or something like that, but it's like $700. I could probably share a screen. There's no legal issues with that, and I bet you this will show up pretty well.
Oh yeah.
So I could show you this, but
Well,
you
you
know
got to
what?
get a dark mode theme for that browser.
I
Oh,
also
hey, there's me.
yeah, but if so, what they're seeing recording wise is the other screen. But if I move, I can't. I just gotta leave this here. So we'll just minimize this. You see this anyway. That's the point. I was hoping it was going to show up on Skype. Maybe I can get it to show up on Skype. Stop sharing. Window. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Wait, what was that option? It said share computer sound? No. So this is the one I want. And you see this? They're not going to be able to see it, but if you guys want to look it up, it's called the Vibe Yellowfin 100 Kayak. And it looks pretty dope. You know what I mean? Those right there, those black storage circles are waterproof storage.
That's wet storage or oh, okay. All right. So it is dry storage.
And
But if it's
they're-
waterproof, could it be wet storage too, so you can keep your fish in there?
Yeah, you can, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of people do. See those black holes? That sounds weird, but those black holes are fish and pole holder slots.
Yep.
That's a cup holder right next to the other dry storage. Now that seat's the big importance. You see how it sits up like that? It's a legitimate metal seat. Like that's the biggest thing. It's made out of cloth and metal. Well, not cloth, whatever material, probably like nylon, so it's reflective with the waterproof. But that's the support, and that's the thing. Like all the other kayaks that you look at, they have the seat issue, and like I'll show you. Like Dick's Sporting Goods seems to be the best place for kayaks. As far as adversity and pricing goes, they seem to have like the most amount out of any other company. But the biggest problem, and like I said, I want to sit on. I don't want to sit in, and I don't even know what I'm talking about. But like, see, this one's $400. This one, that's not a bad option. There's no waterproof storage except for there's no waterproof storage, but I can deal with that. You know what I mean? But you see what you get. You just get this board, and it's got the seat, which it's a good seat as well. But it's got the strap arms. But then there's also like the typical, which the typical is like, let's say that's too much money. Like for example, this one right here. This one looks like a good deal, but this is where it all comes into question. Do you trust the quality of the seat? Because this one right here is a plastic seat with straps.
Yeah.
And I walked up to one today and I grabbed on it and it kind of jiggled like a good 3 inches in wiggle room, as we call tolerance. And that's a lot. It was like, like I could jiggle it. And that means that you got to sit straight up. So how do you sit straight up and put tension into that thing at the same time? That's just very difficult. You know what I mean, in my head, to imagine how you'd adjust it that perfectly. Because that's essentially like a perfect balance between perfect alignment and tension. And that's just difficult for me to imagine obtainable easily. But there you go. It's got dry storage in the back. You see the pricing on this one, $300. And it comes with a paddle. You see how it has a picture of the paddle? That means it comes with a paddle. Not all of them come with the paddle. If it doesn't have a picture of the paddle, it doesn't come with a paddle. So that's an extra $70 you're going to buy onto it, right? And you're probably going to buy other stuff. So it's hundreds and hundreds. So you're probably going to spend about $400 to $500 by the end of it, because you're going to go a little bit fanboy. But let me end the share screening on that. I'm just kind of myself that, what's the word? Diving into this whole thing, and I'm trying to get others interested, because like I'm one of those people, like I'll commit to something, but like I don't, I want to do stuff with other people, so like I just want to find a group of people that I'm able to do stuff with, or just one person. But
I agree.
Be able to line up like one day that like we could be like wake up early to go out to like this spring or something, to like go out there. And I think that'd be really cool to be out there for like a couple hours. And that's what I want to do.
King's Landing or Three Sisters. I'll show you right now. It's freaking it's gorgeous. And it's worth driving all the way across the state just to do it for a day. You wake up early and hand right in front of the camera. The thing.
It's not that bad. It's fine. I don't think you gotta worry about it. But I think it'd be cool too. Like, man, to be honest with you, I had a big patience problem when I was vaping and everything, because it was just kind of like I was getting bored very quickly. And now I'm able to relax and like calm down. And I'm really I looked at the boat mounting equipment, and it's kind of dope how easy it is. Like, I can mount this kayak to my car, and I'm like, that's easy. Like, it's like $70. So, like, it's a very doable thing. Having a boat is a very difficult thing. We were just talking about, like, the expectations. Like, I'll never be able to get a boat. Well, I could, but it's just it's just so much for me right now. But if you're down, I'm totally down. And it would be so cool, because then, like, I'd end up getting, like, a GoPro or a camera mount going. And, like, I'd plan trips around it. But I think
I'd definitely get a DJI Osmo or a GoPro. Oh, man, that'd be so sweet.
Oh, my God. But, like, I'm so down for it. But the thing is, I just, like, I want to see if anybody else is interested.
So this is King's Landing. I've been here before. This is on the West Coast, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And there's also here, there's an official name for it, but you have like the Three Sisters, I think maybe the Seven Sisters, but then also King's Landing as well. And they're all part of a collective spring river system, and they're all within just minutes of each other. And I would love to go back to this area again. Rainbow Springs is in this area as well. I've been to Rainbow Springs. I would highly, highly recommend this area. So let me cut back the screen sharing. But you get the idea. Like, and this is just total fun. It's peaceful. You can see right through the water, so you can observe your dangers.
Yeah, man. I think it'd be beautiful. And, like, you'd be able to kayak out. And to be honest with you, you can withstand more than you think with those wakes. So it's like you could get to areas that you normally think you wouldn't be able to. And not only that, where we're located, we're very, very, very close to the dinoflagellates, a.k.a. the bioluminescent. And like, how cool would it be to be able to kayak out there, man? Or kayak out to, like, Disappearing Island and be able to, like, get on a campsite going, like a mini campsite. Like, everything seems like I'm so down for it. You know what I mean? I'm like I feel like as you get older, you start to adopt certain things. Like, I'm a fishing man, or I'm a hunting man. And it's like I totally want to get into this kayaking, because one, you can just get out there and, like, be peaceful. Two, you can fish. Like, three, like I said, like I want the hunting trip without the hunting. So, like, if you get the kayak, like, you could drag it. Like, we could be able to hike to a certain area with it, and then, like I said, they got the wheel attachments now to where they're like all-terrain wheel attachments. They tie on the back, so it'd be easy to carry them. So, like, if we even wanted to, we'd carry them on the top of the car, bring them somewhere, and then like get out, and then we could bring them up through a trail and get to somewhere that normally people don't get to, and be able to get up there.
Yeah.
I
Or
like,
Mosquito Lagoon, you can put a tent on your kayak and then tent on or camp on one of the
yeah,
islands.
yeah, yeah.
Especially in the winter
Mosquito.
time, that would be totally worth it. And a lot of those islands, well, it's part of the Canaveral National Seashore, and a lot of those islands already have fire pits on them. So it's just a matter of kayaking out from the land, knowing which island you want to sleep
to.
on for a day or two, and then just go and freaking do it.
Yeah, so like that brings the question. Thinking about that, like when you're kayaking out there, would you prefer a sit in or a sit on?
I would. I've seen the two, but I've never really.
What I
formulated
showed
an
you was a
opinion.
sit in.
Yeah, well, the sit-ons are more like a
Sit on.
recumbent
Sorry.
bicycle.
What I showed you was a sit on.
Yeah, and those are more like a recumbent bicycle where you're kind of high up and you're pedaling with your feet. Though not all.
No, there's no
sit-ons
pedal. There's no pedal on that one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Not all sit-ons
Pedal,
are
yeah.
pedal. Yeah, because there are some where you're like 6, 8, 10 inches above the base of the kayak or above the
Water line. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're way up there. Like you have a super high center of gravity.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
Some of these are like, that's the thing. You want to be in like the 300 range just because the balance and the stability of that being an issue. And like the ones with the seats like that, like they're completely stable because the seat is depressed in. So here's the thing. Some sit-ons can be lowered into the kayak enough to be considered a sit-in.
Mm.
So some sit-ins are sit-ons. It's just a matter of measuring it and deciding when it's not. So it's like...
It's not a technicality.
What would you rather have, though, in your opinion, for doing that kind of stuff? This is a serious question that I'm considering. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a sit-in or a sit-on? Because the only thing is, a sit-in, you're not getting wet on your feet when you're going. Most of the sit-ins are not around you. Those
I don't care about getting wet.
Those sit-ins that go all the way around you are mostly for whitewater rafting. And so that's not usually how most of the designs are. Most of the sit-in designs are literally the same as a sit-on. It's just the knees to the feet are covered because as you're moving your paddle, that's the likelihood of where it's going to get wet. But the difference is the sit-ons have self-bailing holes where the sit-ins do not. So if you fill up with water in a sit-in, you have to bail it with a cup. Or if you flip over in a sit-in and it fills up with water, it's a bitch to get it unflipped. If you're on a sit-on, it's very easy. So what I'm asking is, be a little cold and deal with a little bit of a splash and have an easier time, or be dry and risk, if something happened, it'd be the most difficult out of the two. Comfort over use.
I would take a lower center of gravity. I really would. I would.
Well, that's
I would
the thing.
risk-
That's not that big of an issue. Both vary between the models.
But also, I like being lower. I don't know what it is. It's difficult to explain. Even though I haven't given this a great amount of thought in comparing the two, all the kayaks I've ever been in are sit-in. I've thought about sit-ons. I was offered a sit-on at one time, but I declined it. And it was a paddle, I believe, and it was a seafaring kayak. So it was quite a bit longer and quite a bit wider. And we're talking one that was probably in the $1,000, $1,200 range. Yeah. But I think knowing what I do in my experience with kayaks, I would still choose a sit-in kayak. I really would.
Now, this is going to be so interesting to go into, but we'll leave this for more because I feel like this is an endless conversation, especially with my interest peaked. But let's wrap this thing up, man. This was like a really, really, really good podcast. And obviously you'll be back in the United States of America soon. Hopefully the border is not shut down before anything happens.
Another reason why I wanted to go as soon as possible.
Yeah, that would be horrible if something happened, because then it would be like I would be like a number one like suspect. They'd be like, he mentioned this. But it was great having you, man. To next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.